Okay. I gotta get there too, you guys. Okay, so, oh wait, wrong one. Okay, so Matthew 15:1, we're going to be going over 15:1 through 20. Does anyone want to read this? Yeah, come on up here. You're the only one who wants to read the Bible.
1 through 20?
Yes.
Alright. Then the scribes and Pharisees, who were from Jerusalem, came to Jesus saying, "Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread." But he answered and said to them, "Why do you also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor your father and your mother, and he who speaks evil of his father or mother, let him die by death. But you say, whoever says to his father or mother, whatever you would gain from me, it is a gift to God. And in no way he honors his father or his mother, and you voided the commandment of God by your tradition. Hypocrites! Well, did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draws near to me with their mouth and honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. But in vain they worship me, teaching foreign doctrines and commandments of men." And he called the crowd and said to them, "Hear and understand. Not that which goes into the mouth defiles out of the mouth. This is what defiles him." Then his disciples came and said to him, "Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying?" But he answered and said to them, "Every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind leads the blind, both shall fall into the ditch." Then Peter answered and said to him, "Explain this parable to us." And Jesus said, "Are you also still without understanding? Do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out into the waste? But things that which come out of the mouth from the heart, that is what defiles a man. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, and blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man, and goes out from there."
It's pretty good. It's what Jesus said, so it's pretty good. It's a good sermon right there. Okay, you're dismissed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. So, of course, as Messianics, sometimes we run into this sort of verse and we get problems with it, right? Not this one specifically, but there's one in Mark 7 that really gives us problems. Because can anyone quote it really quickly?
Which part of this?
The one that we have a problem with.
Thus he declared all foods clean.
Yeah, that part. In doing so, he declared all foods clean. Or I really like I like the what's the extended version?
Acts?
No. The version of the Bible where it adds all those parentheses. Amplified. Yeah, the amplified version is really great. It says, "Thus he was making and declaring all foods ceremonially clean, that is, abolishing the ceremonial distinctions of the Levitical law." So that's the amplified version of the Bible. Yeah.
Wait, what?
That's
Where'd that come from?
that's the amplified version of Mark 7:30, I believe. But yeah, this is a problem sometimes, right? Especially with that sort of verse that's in there, and we're like, well, what do we do with that? Because obviously, we can't have Jesus abolishing the law, because then he's not Jesus, right? Who knows why Jesus can't abolish the law?
Came to fulfill it.
Daniel.
Because, there's a law saying you can't add or take away, so he'd be breaking the law by abolishing the law, which he needs to fulfill the law, so that kind of contradicts his role as the Messiah, so he'd disqualify himself, and he can't break his own word, so, yeah.
Yeah, also he's sinless, and sin is breaking the law. So if there's a law that says you can't annul the law, then he's not sinless anymore if he says that. That's a problem, because Therefore, he's not the sinless, spotless lamb that can redeem us of our sins, right? So there's big ramifications here if what most Christians say is true about this verse. Slava, do you have the King James version of what's the Mark 7 verse? Let me get to it really quick. Okay. So yeah, go to Mark 7 verse... Oh, that was the wrong one. Verse 19. Oh, you can hear me better from there? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I know, you got tall people right there.
Yeah, sorry.
You got tall torsos.
Verse 6.
Mark 7, verse 19.
For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulterers, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies. To what?
It depends on the version.
Verse 18.
Oh, 18? You said 19.
Yeah, try 18.
Okay. But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man.
You're in Mark
You
7?
gotta change to NIV.
You said 15.
See in NIV? Are you doing
No, Mark 7.
Mark 7, okay.
Yeah, Mark
I
7.
think originally it was 15.
We were in Matthew 15,
Matthew
yeah.
15.
So, yeah, I know. You gotta pay attention, otherwise...
Sorry, do you hear yourself there? That's
Oh, well, now the truth comes out.
It's okay,
Okay.
that's why we do this exercise.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually a lot better than before.
That's very true.
My friends would joke about me saying if you're dying and you were like right there and there's a table between us, we would never hear you because you'd be going like, help, help. I know. Oh,
Mark 7:19.
yeah.
Come on, you got, what, 5 seconds?
Oh yeah, 5-second rule.
Because it entereth not into the heart, but into the belly, it goeth out into the draught. Purging all meats.
So I checked this, and all of the King James versions have this translation, and some of the newer translations as well. It says, it goes out in the stool, and therefore it purges all meats. It's like, that's a bit different from, thus he declared all foods clean, right? But what we get about this all foods clean thing, and this is a tricky verse for translators because it can say sort of both in a way. But we have to favor the better translation. King James, you know, God's holy word straight from the mouth of Paul. And what we get is actually a really early tradition within Christianity that translates that verse as, thus Jesus declared all foods clean, or making all meats clean. And this actually comes from Chrysostom originally. Anybody know who that is?
It's a heretic.
Well, not according to the church. He's actually a saint. But Chrysostom didn't like Jewish people, unfortunately. He also, what was going on in his church was he had all these Christians in his church going over to synagogues on Saturday and obeying the Sabbath. They were keeping the festivals. They were separating between the clean and the unclean foods. You know, this is a nightmare for an early Christian. So what he did was he wrote a bunch of treatises, and there were sermons, but they got written down as treatises. And in his version of the Bible, he was saying that Christians need to separate from Jews as much as possible, and even went as far to say that the Jews are like a heifer that Jesus tried to put a yoke on, but you can't have a heifer do any work. So Jesus tried to put a yoke on them, but they're a heifer, so they shook it off and just trotted about. And he said, "What is a heifer good for?" What's a heifer good for? Slaughter. That's exactly what he said. And so it's kind of bad stuff. And there have been people who tried to create an apology for him, an explanation. But the fact is, regardless of what his intentions were, the end result of all of his works was that you have this huge network of anti-Semitism throughout the church, and he's kind of the one who started it. Chrysostom, Chrysostom, and spelling bee time. but this is a big problem, and this was the guy who translated Mark 7 as "Thus Jesus declared all meats clean." Now, why would he want to do that? Because he wanted Christians to stop doing Jewish things. And one rabbi said one time, in a video that I watched one time, he said he met a guy who wanted to get away from Judaism as much as possible. So what did he do? He started eating pork, and he broke the Sabbath. Okay, so if you want to be as least Jewish as possible, those are the two things you got to do. And so Chrysostom, he's like, well, I know this, so everybody eat pork and stop going on the Sabbath festivals and everything like that. And that's sort of where this tradition began. However, by the time King James came about, even though the King James Version was written by, I believe it was the Anglicans, right? Something like that, yeah. And so the Anglicans were much more philo-Semitic. They didn't hate the Jews as much. So they were like, well, that's not really what it says. It's more likely purging all meats. And so that's how they translated it. But then, later, more Christians said, well, actually, I like eating pork, so I'm going to translate it the other way.
What does that mean, purging?
Purging?
Making it all meats clean or something? Or
It means...
It means cleaning in a sense, purging.
Yeah.
But what they meant by that, I do not know.
Yeah, it's a very unique.
It means all the toxins stay in you, but the meat comes out clean.
It's the opposite, actually. But yeah. Yeah, no, it basically means the physical food that goes into your mouth goes through the whole system and then exits, and it hasn't really done anything to your body. So what Jesus says instead of that is, rather than your focus being on that, like saying that eating pork somehow makes you unclean in the eyes of God, rather you should be thinking, well, instead of that, it's idolatry, it's adultery, it's fornication, it's all of these other sins that come from the heart that makes you unclean.
But isn't it a sin if you believe it's a sin to eat pork?
It's a sin to eat pork as well, but that's the thing that you don't want to say. So you should be quiet about that one. Yeah, no, it's a sin to eat pork too. So if you're eating pork in rebellion against God, which, if you read the Bible and then it says don't eat pork, and then you eat pork in rebellion against God, therefore you're rebelling against God. So that's also a sin, and that comes out of the heart. But,
But it's not the pork itself.
right, it's not like the physical property of the pork is somehow going to make your spiritual self unclean, but it's more the intention behind it.
Very much so.
Yeah. So it's like everyone knows about the ham sandwich.
Oh no, not that.
No.
The vegetarian ham sandwich?
Yeah, yeah. So if you're stranded on a desert island and the only thing there for food was a ham sandwich, what would you do?
Oh man.
Take the meat out?
Take the meat out. Just eat the bread. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but that's the whole point. If you're doing it because there's no other option, then you're not doing it out of rebellion against God. You might be saying, God, why'd you only give me a ham sandwich? But the point is, if you're going to go to some restaurant 500 miles away where nobody can see you and say, like, take off all your kippahs and everything and just say, I want that ham right there, the roast pork, just because, I know it's a sin, but I just really want to have it, then, that's a sin out there.
Difference is life.
Yeah.
So if it was the last resort, yeah, but God values life over everything else.
Yeah, and intent.
And then 10, like they gave Eli, I think it was with veggie burger with ham
With bacon.
with bacon.
Yeah.
You're like, you don't want bacon in your veggie.
You didn't ask for any.
I,
Like,
you
did
didn't?
ask for us not to put it into a
Yeah. I know.
And that would not qualify as a sin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like because his intent wasn't there. He wasn't out there to like purposely eat ham sandwiches.
That wasn't my purpose,
Yeah.
especially at that time, because I was probably still vegetarian at that point too. Alright.
Or I don't know, 2.5 years ago, we were at Starbucks and it was a Saturday and
Oh, that's two bad marks right there.
the
Starbucks
Bible-
and a Saturday.
people from this Bible study were at the Starbucks
Oh.
and
Oops.
you weren't. We were trying not to buy anything, but somebody else bought something for Nadia,
Oh.
and she didn't technically buy it, so she didn't really sin drinking that.
Well, that's a very rabbinic loophole right there. But yeah, I mean, like another thing. One time, a friend of mine, I'm not going to say any names, had a boyfriend who didn't know much about the whole Sabbath thing, and he's like, "Well, I bought you this spa treatment on Saturday," and she was like, "Oh, thanks," but she still went. But either way, it's like, what's the greater sin, to offend your boyfriend or to offend God? Who knows? But okay, so let's talk about cleanliness. So washing of the hands, that's what this whole passage is all about. Most people say, well, cleansing all meats, right? It's about clean and unclean food. But really, it's about clean and unclean hands. That's what this passage is about, especially the Matthew version of it. So I have a few verses here. Who can tell me about unclean hands?
Is it still in Mark 7?
Matthew 15. That's true, yeah. It helps you
hands
spread
clean.
COVID. Keep your
Bible's
hands
been
clean.
talking about it for a while now.
The Bible says keep your hands clean.
It's a legal term. Actually, clean hands.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're innocent.
Well, that's true. There are a few verses here that will help with that. Okay, Exodus 19, verse 11 through 15. Who wants to read this? Oh, yeah, I'll assign some verses. Do you want to read Exodus 19, verse 11 through 15?
Sure can. Let me pull this up on my phone.
Who wants to read Exodus 40, verse 12?
Okay, so Exodus 19.
For Savi.
what?
19, verse 11 through 15.
Alright.
Who wants to read Leviticus 17, 15? Nadia.
Elena wants.
Elena. Okay. You have to raise your hand, Elena.
Is it the Leviticus one?
You'll read Numbers 19:12. Yep.
Numbers 19.
Yours is Exodus 40, verse 12.
Tell him.
Wait, which one do I read?
Leviticus 17, 15.
17.
15. And then Elena, yours is Numbers 19:12. Who wants to read Ezekiel 36, verse 20 through 4 and 25?
I'll do that. Ezekiel 26.
36.
Ezekiel 36, 24 to 25.
Yes. Who wants to read Deuteronomy 21, 6 through 9? Hannah. Deuteronomy 21, 6 through 9. And who wants to read Luke 11, 37 through 41?
We don't have phones, so we can't.
Oh,
I'll give you guys my phone.
alright. Sierra. Now, who wants to read John 13, verses 5 through 10? Slava.
I don't have my phone.
Well, you can use mine.
Alright. Just remember, yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Who wants to read James 4:8? There are a lot of Bible verses about clean hands, or about cleanliness in general. But we've ran out of people. Okay. James 4:8. Okay. James 4:8. Revelation 7:14.
Just give them to me as they come.
Okay. Okay.
That's a lot of remembering.
I know. I was over prepared for this. Okay. Exodus 19, 11 through 15.
Alright. To be ready for the third day, of the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And you shall set bounds to the people around, saying, Take heed to yourselves. Do not go up to the mountain or touch the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be surely put to death. Therefore, there shall not be a hand to touch it, but they shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether beast or man, it shall not live. And when the trumpet sounds along, they shall come up to the mountain. And then Moses went down the mountain to the people and sanctified the people. And they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, Be ready for the third day. Do not approach.
Yeah, I forgot to mention verse 10 as well. Can you read verse 10?
Rewinding. The Lord said to Moses, Go to the people and sanctify them today, and let them wash their clothes.
All right. Versavia, Exodus 40:12.
12.
Yep.
You shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tent of the meeting and wash them with water.
All right. Leviticus 17:15.
And every soul that eats that which dies with a fell, or that which is torn in pieces, whether it be one of your own country or a stranger, he shall both wash his clothes, bathe himself in water, and become unclean until the evening. Then shall he be clean.
And there are a variety of other laws that are very similar to that, if you have a variety of issues. Numbers 19:12.
He shall cleanse himself with the water on the third day and on the seventh day, and so be clean. But if he does not cleanse himself on the third day and on the seventh day, he will not be clean.
That's rough. Ezekiel 36:24 through 25.
I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanness and from all your idols. I will cleanse you.
Deuteronomy 21:6 through 9.
And all the others of that city nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands over the her whose neck was broken in the valley, and they shall testify, Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it shed. Accept atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and do not set the guilt of innocent blood in the midst of your people Israel, so that their blood guilt be atoned for. So you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from your midst, when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord.
Luke 11:37 through 41.
Is that me?
I think so, yeah.
Luke 11.
I lost track too. So.
11.
37 to 31.
37 to 41. Yes.
41.
Go backwards.
When the Pharisee saw it, he was amazed that he had not first washed before dinner. And the Lord said to him, Now you Pharisees make the outside of the cup and the platter clean, but your inward part is full of plunder and wickedness. Fools, did not he who made the outside also make the inside? But give, what is that? How do you say that?
Heed? How's it spelled?
Heed?
No. Alms.
Oh, alms,
Yes.
yeah.
Of such things as you have, and behold, all things are clean to you. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and every herb, and pass over judgment and the love of God. You ought to have done these, and not to leave the other undone. What is it? 40 to 40?
37 41.
41, yeah.
Oh, well, I just went to 42, but
All right. Well, that's cool anyway. So.
my bad.
Okay, John 13:5 through 10. Who had that one? Oh,
think me.
Slava. Yes.
45?
John 13:5 through 10.
5 through 10.
Elena, you have a question? Oh, you're just doing it. That's okay. Okay.
After that, he poureth water unto a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and wiped them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then he cometh to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, I do, thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and are clean, but not all.
Yes, yes. So, the basic idea is God sort of is, it's important to God that we are clean, right? And so he's talking, okay, we see the verse about the leaders of the cities, like Daniel was saying. They clean their hands and they say, symbolically, we have not committed this sin. And then in Exodus, we see Moses telling the people, saying, wash your clothes and sanctify yourself, for in 3 days God is going to appear to you. And then you have, if you have any sort of issue or anything that makes you unclean, like touching a dead body, you have to bathe yourself on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And if you don't do that, then you remain unclean. And that means you can't go into the temple. You can't go into the holy place of God, and you can't go into His presence. And so the whole point, especially with the Moses incident in Exodus 19, he says, bathe your clothes, because you're going to be in the presence of God. And so part of what we do is the physical side of what we do. So a lot of times in Jesus' day, they had the issue with only doing the physical side, right? And then Jesus says, no, you don't just do the physical side, you got to do the spiritual side as well. Like the verse that he quotes, he says, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. Because they thought, well, all we have to do is we have to say the words, and then we're good. It's like an incantation, in a way. But no, God says, I want a relationship with you. And so, yeah, you got to clean yourself. But it's, Daniel, you want Hannah to bathe when you're married? Yeah, but you also want her to be devoted to you and to have her heart clean towards you and be pure in that way. Yeah, so I mean, you don't take one and then leave the other. You want both of them in a relationship, in a marriage. And Ian, how about you?
It's whatever she wants to do.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, for Savia, then you answer.
I prefer him to date.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
what
right.
is this?
And that's the point, is we're a bride to the Messiah. And he says, yeah, you're bathing yourself, and that's all fine and dandy, but your heart is far from me. And so what I want you to do is I want you to remain pure. Don't commit idolatry. Don't commit any of these wickednesses that he lists. And not just these, but these are just a overview. It's a way of saying all of the commandments of God, all of these sins come from the heart, and sin comes from the heart. And so cleanse your heart, you wicked people. But cleanliness is important. So I'm going to assign some more verses. You wanted to read James 4:8, right? James 4:8. Who wants to read Revelation 7:14?
Yeah. Do that one. Slava will do that one.
Slava, Revelation 7:14. Daniel, you want to do 22:14, Revelation. And then finally, Deuteronomy 23:13. Elena. Okay, Ian.
Alright. So, draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify your hearts, O double-minded ones.
Just like that. Cleanse your hands, purify your hearts, both at the same time. Slava.
And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, These are they which come out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb.
Daniel.
What verses again on 22?
22:14.
Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they have the right to the tree of life, that they may enter into the city by the gates.
And what sort of washing is this? It's the same what the Slava said, right? Washing your robes in the blood of the Lamb, so that they once were red as scarlet, now they're white as snow. So this is the spiritual cleansing that we're talking about. And now, Elena, Deuteronomy 23:13.
And you shall have a trowel with your tool, and when you sit down outside, you shall dig a hole with it and turn back and cover up your excellence.
Oh, next verse.
14?
Yes, as well.
Right. Because the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp to deliver you and to give up your enemies before you. Therefore your camp must be holy, so that he may not see anything and descend among you and turn away from you.
Yeah. And so this is the whole point of the cleanliness laws. Like, you think, okay, the excrement that's just, I mean, God is spiritual. He looks at something physical like that and he's like, whatever. It doesn't even bother me. But here in the Torah, Deuteronomy 23:14, it says explicitly that God sees these things that make us unclean, even just on a physical level, and they say, well, you wouldn't do that in front of a physical king, would you? No, I hope not. You wouldn't go to Donald Trump and just, I'm not going to finish that, but you wouldn't do that in front of your physical rulers. So how much greater am I than your physical rulers? So how much more respect should you be showing to me than your physical rulers? And so, and maybe he also just doesn't like the look of it, but he created it, so who knows? But what's really important here is Ezekiel 36:24 through 25, where it says, I'm going to cleanse you, sprinkle cleansing water over you, and bring you back into the land that I promised you. And so this has messianic ramifications for the future even, because we're not in the land. We're still here in Washington. Washington is great, but it's not Israel. And what God says is, I'm going to cleanse you with the cleansing water. I'm going to cleanse you with the blood of the Lamb, and I'm going to cleanse you with the cleansing water. I'm going to clean your hands and your hearts, and then you can enter into the land that I promised you. And that's the whole point. That's what we're looking for, and that's what we're looking forward to. There's another verse that I forgot to mention, and I didn't write it down either. It's in Psalms, but it asks the question, who can go up to the mountain of the Lord? Those with the clean hands and a pure heart.
You shall see God.
Yeah, the pure shall, is it the pure when it says that?
Pure in heart.
The pure in heart, yeah. There you go, pure in heart, and the hands. That would be the rabbinic edition. And so, that's cleanliness for us. Now, we want to take a look at protest. Jesus, he was protesting, right? He was, and he quoted a very specific verse. This was Isaiah 2:27, I believe, where he quotes and he says, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. And the verse is seated in between two sections, which, if I remembered the exact verse, we could go to and double check, but I don't. So, it's seated between one verse where God is saying that you're blind, and you're blind rulers, and you have absolutely no way of knowing what this word is. Isaiah is saying, I'm going to give you a word from the Lord, but you are so blind that you can't even hear it. He said if you were able to see, then you would say, I can't open it because it's sealed. But if you were just blind, you would say, I can't read it because I'm blind, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because you can still hear it. But they were making excuses. They couldn't hear what the word of the Lord said. So he says, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. And then it says that God is going to bring the enemies to Israel, and he's going to essentially destroy Israel.
It's Isaiah 29, 10, 12.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Isaiah 29, 10 through 12. And then after that, then he says, but I'm going to rescue you in the end days. After all of this calamity befalls you, I'm going to bring you back into your land. I'm going to cleanse you. I'm going to speak kindly to you. All these great and wonderful things that we're looking forward to. But what happens here? Jesus is quoting a verse where he's saying, you guys are utterly, utterly wicked. And this is what many of the prophets, Jeremiah, for instance, he was at a time in in Judah's history where God destroyed them. Ezekiel as well, except he was in the exiles. He was amongst the exiles. And what did they all do? Did they all say, well, I'm no longer an Israelite because you guys are kind of crazy?
No.
No. He was just like, they were fighting the faith from within the faith. They're saying, you guys are crazy, but you're my brothers at the same time. I can't just abandon you. And so we have certain, like Chrysostom, for instance, like we were talking about before, and Jesus himself. Jesus was fighting the Pharisees from within the faith. He wasn't saying, well, I guess you guys can't hear me, so I'm going to start a new religion. Because he didn't start a new religion. And Chrysostom thought he did. But Chrysostom, he was saying, let's cut ourselves off. And there's a reason that us, as Messianics, we like Jesus and we don't like Chrysostom as much. Chrysostom, he had some pretty cool commentary, but, he was also kind of bad at the same time. And the reason is because when we protest, we're supposed to protest against our brothers from, the standpoint of a brother, not from the standpoint of an enemy, which, in large part, we've done for the last 2,000 years. And this is the sort of sin that comes from the heart. That's another one of these sins that comes from the heart.
Wait, isn't in the New Testament it says, for you, concerning you they're enemies, but concerning God they are the elect.
Yeah, that's Romans 11:35, something around 25, I think. But yeah, so the heart defiles, and we need to fight against it. There's another thing, these naturalists here in our state and in our academies, they're always saying, well, Sam Harris is a good one. He says, what is the definition of morality? The definition of morality is what you find in nature. It's the nature of human beings to do X, so therefore it's a good thing. Because you look at a dog and the dog does X. Like the dog, a wolf, when he's been defeated in a fight, he'll tilt his neck out so that to sort of show the other wolf that he's subservient to him, right? And you look at that and you're like, well, that's the morality of wolves. That's what they do, and that's a good thing for them to do. And then people, a lot of times, they'll try to translate that to humans. They'll say, well, humans, the morality of humans, we sort of all feel like it's not good to murder, right? You have these sorts of feelings that it's not good to commit adultery.
Chapter 11, verse 28, that's what it was.
Oh, thank you. And so a lot of these naturopathic ethicists, or materialistic ethicists, they'll say, well, if it's a human normative behavior, then it is a good behavior, right? Sorry. So that's how they say homosexuality, that's okay. Because it's normal. It's what people do. You'll go through the Roman world, go through the Greek world, that's what they did. Go to ancient Japan, that's what they did. Go to all the other ancient cultures, that's just what they did. I mean, they had wives, but they also had, their male lovers and stuff. And so that was normal. So that's why we know that it's good. But, on the other hand, they also say that racism is normal. But they say we have to fight against that. And so what's the point? The point is, you can't look to nature, you can't look to human nature and say, well, whatever human nature is good. What you can look to is the Word of God. But we have to fight against the heart. We have to transcend that racism, for instance. We have to transcend those human things that we want to do, that is normal for us to do, and align ourselves with God's will. And we have to keep the commandments. And when we protest, like Jesus, he protested against his brothers. We don't want to exit from our brothers. Like, for instance, we're all Christians, right? We don't say, I'm a Messianic. I'm not a Christian anymore. I've thought about this for a long time, and I used to do that. People would be like, are you Christian? I'd be like, nope. And so, what are you saying to somebody who says that?
Catholic.
You say, are you Catholic? No. It's like, what are you? I don't know. It's really difficult to explain. It's complicated. But then after a while, I just started saying, yeah, because it was easier, because, you just go over the same conversation over and over again. But the point is, what we shouldn't say we're not Christians, because we are. I mean, in all honesty, we are. And if we're saying that we're cutting ourselves off from Christianity, then why would they listen to us? We're like a Mormon, Well, Mormons think they are Christians, but we're like a Muslim, which might be worse. I don't know. What's worse, Mormon or Muslim?
I think
Yeah.
a Christian
There
would
would
be
be a
more
small
inclined to
chance.
talk to a Muslim than a Mormon.
What?
I think a Christian would be more inclined to talk to a Muslim than a Mormon.
Probably, yeah. But less inclined to listen to a Muslim. That's what I would think. I don't know. When you were a Christian, were you more inclined to listen to a Mormon or a Muslim?
I didn't know what Muslims were, and I had more idea what a Mormon was.
Okay, well, I guess we're not going to get anywhere with this. The point is, let's. We don't want to cut ourselves off from our Christian brothers or from our Jewish brothers. We want to say, we are your brothers. What we are is we're different because we see some sort of corruption within the system. But we're not leaving the system. Like Martin Luther, he left the Catholic system. Chrysostom, he left the Jewish system. And what happened was this divide that is seemingly irreparable. And we don't want that. We don't want to divide the body. As Paul says, is the body divided?
Well,
No.
Messianics don't divide Christians. Christians divide Messianics.
Yeah. I know lots of Messianics that say, I'm not a Christian anymore. Those pagans. Yeah. We don't do those pagan things like you lowly Christians.
You
Sort
little
of.
pagans.
Yeah. But we shouldn't do that. What we need to do is we need to embrace our brothers and say, hey, we're you. We just think that you're wrong in this area and that area. We need to keep the law. We need to keep the commandments because this is the cleansing of the heart that will lead to the ultimate redemption that we're looking forward to.
But let's not say we're Catholics.
Yeah, well. Do you want to reach Catholics? Just tell them you're a Protestant. You're like, oh, no, thank you. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Any questions while she's looking for a question? Yeah.
Remember how Ruben would say we're Catholic with a little c?
Yeah.
I feel like that's not a bad way to represent if you're talking to a Catholic, because that wouldn't change your position that you're a Christian. That wouldn't change your position that you're a Messianic.
Yeah. Well, in my talking to Catholics, what I normally do is, because there has been this sort of divide between Christians and Catholics. So, like, I was talking to my Catholic friend, and she said, or I was trying to start a business. And I said, I want to start a business where a bunch of Christian organizations come together and they can be on this list where if you want to get, like, Christian beef or go to a Christian supermarket, you can go to there instead of, like, Safeway or something. So I was talking to her, and I said, would you be interested in doing that? Because she wanted to start a coffee stand. And I said, you're Catholic, which means you would qualify. And she said, I'm Catholic, though. I'm not a Christian. So I was thinking, but you believe in Jesus, right? I mean, they're kind of the same thing, sort of. I mean, there's a bit of a difference, but, you know. And I guess the way that I sort of talked to Catholics was I just made Christianity more of a broad umbrella than it has traditionally been described as.
Be everything into all men to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Versavia.
We talked about Mark 7,
Mm-hmm.
and we said that the translation is a little wonky, but we never really got an explanation of what it actually does mean. We know what it doesn't mean. What does it mean then? So people ask me, okay, so purging all meats, what does that mean? I will, like, what do I say?
Well, you just have to visualize it. Let's say the verse is saying, do you know what food does? It goes into your mouth and goes to your stomach, and then it goes into the dross, purging all meats.
Okay. So it just means to eliminate waste, basically?
Yeah, it means like whatever the physical properties of the food isn't going to make you spiritually impure. And this is kind of a common understanding for sin. It's not like the act of holding an axe and lifting it and then doing this into another person is what makes you impure. But it's the act of killing another person that makes you impure. And
Or
so
like rape, like you get raped, you have to sin. It's been forced.
yeah. So
That
it's
won't make you impure spiritually.
right. It's not like that being involved in that act itself makes you impure, but it's the heart that made you impure.
So Matthew 15 would just be the same concept, basically.
Yeah, Matthew 15 is easier because he read the Mark version. He was like, I don't want to say that, so write a different thing down there,
Yeah.
or something like that. That's what the secular scholars say. But yeah, Matthew 15 isn't as difficult. The Luke version isn't as difficult. It's just the Mark version that's kind of in your face about it in some translations. But if you read it in the King James, it's perfectly fine. And then the point is, even if they are both equally likely a translation, or maybe even if the bad translation is more likely a translation from the Greek, what we have to do is we have to understand that Jesus could not, just logically, could not have gone against the Torah. And so even if it's less likely that the writing was purging all meats, we still have to go with that because that's the only way that Jesus can remain sinless. But in my reading, I believe that it is equal. They're sort of equally likely translations, and through history, it has been traditionally translated one way or another way. Yeah.
That's complicated, but okay.
It is, yeah. Just say purging all meats, and then they say, what does that mean? Just say visualize it. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions? Any comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. Also, he makes some important notes saying sin comes from the heart instead of into your belly and into your heart, meaning that sin comes out of you, out of what you do, instead of being contaminated by accidentally eating pork. But it would be contaminated if you come out with a decision to eat pork.
Yeah. And that's another thing is the heart, we think of heart, we think of emotions, and we think of brain, we think of knowledge, stuff like that. But in those days, they were all the same. The heart was knowledge and emotion all in one. And so it's things that come out of your understanding, things that come out of your emotion. Like if you hate a brother for no reason, you've committed an act tantamount to murder. And so that's a heart issue. And it's an emotion issue. But at the same time, if you have a particular understanding, just a rational understanding, and it leads you to be able to sin, for instance, then that's an impure heart as well. And so the Christian that understands that it's wrong to eat pork, but because they've rationalized it in such a way that Paul has made it okay to eat pork, well, then that's an understanding that is impure. And is that something that's going to send them to hell? Probably. I don't think so. That's up for God to decide. But it's still something that is good for us to be able to talk to them about. Slava.
Would you say it's accurate to say every single time you make a decision to sin, you are spiritually dirty, defiled? Every single time you do the sin, you're physically do the sin.
I don't know if I would separate them like that. You're spiritually and physically defiled, I would say, every time you... actually, I mean, that might be a really good way of putting it.
Because if you don't eat pork, but you decide to eat pork, you already spiritually made the sin.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you decide to kill your brother, or you hate your brother, but
Yeah.
you haven't killed him yet, you already sinned.
Yeah, no, that might be... I'd have to think about that. That's a really interesting way of putting it. Yeah.
Wait,
Huh.
what about killing your brother where it could be not a sin?
It's always
Be
the
an
sin.
accident.
Yeah, it could be an accident.
But you would still be unclean physically because you have to run over to a city and hide.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it might actually fly what you say.
That's actually, yeah, no, that's true. Because you're not spiritually unclean, but because you touched a dead body, then you're physically. That's interesting.
Well, with Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter, it could happen quite often, brother accidentally killing a brother.
Yeah, that's true. Elena. Did you have? Oh, okay.
Stretch a lot.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, or shall we close off? All right. Let's close off the service then. Let's turn to your Siddur. I was talking to someone and I said, yeah, I'm getting a bunch of sidders. And they're like, that's not how you pronounce it, it's Siddur. And I'm like, I'm in America. Land of the free. You can't tell me what to do.
I say what I want. First Amendment.
Okay, go to page 85. Middle of page 85. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, King of the universe, Rock of all the worlds, righteous in all the generations, the Almighty, the Faithful One, who says and does, who speaks and fulfills. For all his words are true and right. Dependable are you, Adonai our God, and dependable are your words. And not one of your words is ever retracted unfulfilled. For you are the Almighty, a King who is dependable and merciful. Blessed are you, Adonai, the Almighty, who is dependable in all his words. Have compassion on Zion, for it is the home of our life, and the one whose soul is humiliated. Deliver speedily in our days. Blessed are you, Adonai, who causes Zion to rejoice with her children. Cause us to rejoice, Adonai our God, with Elijah the prophet, your servant, and with the kingdom of the house of David, your anointed. Speedily may he come and cause our heart to exult. Upon his throne no stranger will sit, and others will no longer inherit his honor. For by your holy name you swore to him that his light will never be extinguished. Blessed are you, Adonai, shield of David. For the Torah, for the divine service, for the prophets and apostles, and for this Sabbath day, which you gave us, Adonai our God, for holiness and for rest, for honor and for glory. For all this, Adonai our God, we thank you and bless you. Blessed be your name, by the mouth of all the living, continually forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, sanctifier of the Sabbath. Let's go to page 95. This is the Aleinu. We're supposed to sing it, but I don't know how to sing it, so. Daniel, you want to sing it for us?
In English? I never sang it. Okay.
In Hebrew?
Are we starting from the top?
Yeah. 95. That's the alternative. We'll do the traditional version.
We are duty bound to praise the master of all, to ascribe greatness to the one who created him from the beginning, that he did not make us the nation of the lands. He did not place us as the families of the earth, since he did not assign our portions as theirs, nor lot like all of the masses. We therefore bow and worship and give you thanks before the King.